Hello, welcome to another edition of Coffee Break. It's Steve Barrett here, who's the editorial director of PR Week, and I'm delighted to be with Naimul, who is the SVP of Operations at VaynerNFT. And Naimul, it's great to have you on Coffee Break. I'm really looking forward to finding out more about NFTs, because it seems you can't walk around the corner or go anywhere these days without hearing about them. But there's so much noise, I'm not sure people understand much about them. So welcome to Coffee Break.
Thanks for having me, Steve. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so you've joined Vayner relatively recently, but you have a history in PR from Precision and Lippy Taylor, and on the client side at Humana. So tell us a bit about the new role at Vayner and what you're doing, because it sounds like a really interesting opportunity.
Yeah, so Vayner is growing very quickly, expanding in the NFT space, and has really put a stake in the ground in establishing an agency dedicated to this work. And really we're positioning ourselves as consultants, because the kind of change making and transformation that has to happen in an enterprise to bring on Web3 technologies and start to wade into this space does require some significant repositioning of how they think about engaging with customers. So from an operations standpoint, there's a lot to do. You know, it's typical agency engagements on dropping projects. You have communication that is largely through social media and websites and other traditional mediums, but you have these mechanisms of smart contracts and blockchain interactions and the NFTs themselves that require a lot of technology infrastructure and a lot of understanding of how the culture is going to respond to you issuing that. So there are, really critical considerations around getting it right and making sure that you're using something that people can interact with. And we work with all kinds of technology partners and artists and other thinkers in the space to make sure that everything from the tokenomics to the experience of working with the NFT or experiencing the NFT is something that's really good for the people who are choosing to mint them.
Yeah, well, looking forward to digging into some of that. Tokenomics, I like that. That's a good word. But I guess we should start with a word about your founder, Gary Vaynerchuk, a charismatic marketer. He was in early on a bunch of social platforms, wasn't he? He's always seems to be at the cutting edge. And I've following him on social, saw the sort of run up to his NFT thing. He was doing loads of doodles and what have you, and sort of teasing them, and then eventually there was a big drop, and I think there were a few issues around that drop. But I think he's also very conscious to say that this is very early stages, right? So you get this sort of get rich quick sort of vibe around NFTs. But I think, would it be fair to say Gary's view is we're at really early stages, and there are going to be lots of potential uses here for brand marketers and communicators?
Yeah, I think Gary's been pretty unequivocal about his lifelong commitment to holders of his NFT. And this is really something that is unique about these products. They are indelible on the blockchain in perpetuity. There is provenance dating back to the original issuance of that product. And it's something that has never existed in this form ever before. It allows for a type of engagement with the holder of the token that is really difficult to achieve otherwise through social media or email. So it's a new way of communicating with your customers. It's also a new way that the customers themselves are able to express themselves. And as a medium of communication, it has that unique attribute of turning into something that can be an identity for people. It can be a collection that represents them, and it can be a mechanism for utility for things like what Gary put out, opportunities to meet him or come to a conference, which I'm sure you're curious about. It's coming up this year.
Yeah, VCON, we'll get into that as well in Minneapolis, I think, in May. But Gary's always been into collectibles, going back to baseball cards and things like that. Is it fair to say NFTs are like the modern version of collectibles?
Yeah, I think he would say that the collecting that he's done all his life never imagined it would manifest in the way that culture has adopted collectability as a core focus, but that's how it's manifested. And so I think he has a penchant for it and a skill in understanding where the culture is going to lead. He was early into sports cards and other things like that. He's been doing garage sales for a long time. And, there was just a confluence of interest in both the way that the NFTs work and the way that people like to think about collectability and rarity, that made a lot of sense to them. So initial issuance of this and a lot of projects at that time were very focused on collectability, and that continues to be an important thing in the space. But I think the conversation has deepened and the focus has turned to art and the utility of the project, the way that the technology facilitates interactions with others in your community or with websites or experiences. And people are doing really interesting and amazingly advanced in terms of the technology things with their projects now.
And if I'm a brand manager, a marketer, a communicator, what should I know about it? Give us a sense for what people are doing. Obviously, people collect shoes, right? Nikes, whatever your brand is. So presumably those sort of brands are at a leading edge, or fashion brands. But what are the opportunities for brands? And if I'm sitting there, what should I be looking at in terms of incorporating NFTs into my activations?
Yeah, so there's a spectrum of potential utilizations. You have, with Gary's project, the introduction of a lot of intellectual property. So these are new characters that he has a vision for creating merchandise and television shows and feature films around these characters. And because of the nature of it being an NFT, he can give back to the holders of those individual pieces of IP in a way that would be really hard to do through shares or some other financial mechanism. So a lot of brands are thinking about ways to unlock their own IP, hand over a certain amount of ownership, especially with new properties, to their customers, and allow them to be, part of a community that has a say in the direction of where this, this character might evolve into, and what kinds of opportunities may exist for, creating media and other expressions of that content. We see this happening with film and with animation. We definitely started seeing with gaming, and people are buying into games in a way that allows them to have interactions with people all over the world that are financially rewarding. There's play to earn mechanics that allow you to earn tokens in games for certain levels of performance. So there's a new way of thinking about approaching these spaces that, again, hasn't existed in other domains. And so when brands are coming to this space, they have to think about what will align with their existing customer base and how they want to tap into the crypto native or NFT native communities too, because those are the ones who will probably be earliest and be the most translating, most advocacy driving individuals in the space to help other people enter the space. Brands are starting to dip their toes in a lot of different ways. They're partnering with artists to do art drops that give you ownership of a token of digital art. They are starting to do things that give you loyalty, cards that you can earn points against, and those are all tracked on the blockchain, and they're immutable, and you have ownership of them, so you could sell those things. They're doing tickets, all kinds of anything that's governed by a contract or is an agreement that needs to persist for a long time can be made available through an NFT. So there's a lot of ways that companies that have agreements with their customers are starting to think about bringing this technology to facilitate those agreements and allow for automated transacting, financial interactions and access and gating to events, both virtual and in real life, through the mechanism of the NFT.
Are there any fashion brands that have sort of done anything that really caught your eye, or consumer brands?
Absolutely, yeah. So we see fashion brands entering the space because of the potential of the metaverse to be an immersive 3D experience that starts to replace some of the two-dimensional interactions that we have over the internet. And when we go into these spaces, we need the same advantages of social signaling that we use through, taking a picture of ourselves next to a Lamborghini. Maybe it's in a Taco Bell parking lot, maybe it's in our garage. You don't actually know. The amazing thing about the blockchain is that the provenance is there to show that I purchased this asset. So it could be a Chanel handbag that you carry around in the metaverse as a signal to other people that you have something desirable or that you were early into an opportunity. It definitely signals community participation and membership in a way that is really difficult to do in digital spaces today. So not only are brands selling digital goods and earning significant revenue from the ability to sell those goods, from profile pictures to virtual 3D assets, they're starting to build stores and storefronts in the metaverse. So Decentraland and Sandbox are two emerging metaverses that are metaverses because they allow you to own the land as an individual. You can lease it, you can generate revenues from having that land. So they're building places that you as a avatar can visit, purchase these goods. And this is nothing new. Second Life has been doing this for a long time. But because of the tie to the blockchain, you have proven ownership of those assets and the land that they were purchased on. And that's really the foundation of Web3 as an idea. It goes from being a read, write web experience, a two-way medium, to a place where you can fractionalize and have ownership of those web experiences and trade them freely in the marketplace.
Yeah, I'm old enough to remember Second Life, and I recall one of my colleagues, must be about 13, 14 years ago, saying, "Second Life, get a life." That was his payoff line in one of his pieces, but things have moved on since then, haven't they? And so the Web3, the metaverse is changing everything, and we did a big features on this on PR Week recently, and we'll keep diving into that. Just a couple of things that I think people bring up whenever you talk about NFTs. First of all, let's talk about the environmental footprint, because you would expect, because it's digital, that it would be much more environmental, but a lot of people say it isn't, and that it has potentially harmful, environmental impact. How do you sort of respond to that when people throw that one out there?
Yeah, so the environmental consideration is something that I think the crypto community has had under consideration for a long time themselves. It tends to be a collective of developers who have egalitarian ideals in some cases, the ones who originate these blockchains anyways, and maybe not the ones who, from a financial standpoint, take advantage of others. But the movement we've seen is, with the Ethereum blockchain, for example, they're moving towards a merge and evolution of the utility and the mechanism of proving transactions on the blockchain, to go away from one that requires you to have your computer systems do the work to solve those algorithms and confirm those transactions, to one that's based on staking and it's more digitalized. And it removes the energy consumption aspect from confirming the transactions. It gives it that security and distribution. And there's something that we're seeing in the emergence of new layer 1 protocols like Ethereum, and in the emergence of layer 2 protocols that work underneath layer 1s to allow for higher transaction throughput or faster transaction speeds, that they're leaning into these more non-proof of work types of systems. And because of this new technology, I think a lot of the issues and concerns about having big rooms of computer systems that are fans blowing over them and consuming a lot of energy will start to reduce. The other thing that I'd say is we see that the driver of energy consumption in mining things like Bitcoin and Ethereum has encouraged those owners to use more renewable energies. And so they're setting up solar farms and wind farms in order to power these things, because from a cost efficiency standpoint, it's much easier for them to install those, and allows them to have control of the full supply chain of energy into the confirmation of these transactions on these computer systems. So there is a lot of thought that we're putting, at least for our clients, into the importance of having a sustainable solution. And so many of our clients are looking at other protocols like Near and Polygon and others that either do carbon offsets or they have low energy consumption costs. So there's a lot of ways that this community is thinking about solving for the environmental concern.
Yeah, and that will need to be part of the brand narrative, won't it? They'll need to be able to respond to that. So good to know that things are developing on that front. Just quickly, give us the deets on VCON, because it sounds like a lot of fun, and it's coming up soon.
Yeah, so VCON is coming up in May. The only way that you can go from May 19th to the 22nd in Minneapolis is to have the NFT ticket. Right now, if you purchase a new Series 1 VFriend, it's not going to be possible for you to get the ticket issuance from that. They've already been minted out to all the owners. So this is one way that people who held that token are getting extra value. They're able to trade on the secondary market the individual ticket. Every year after this, they're going to get an additional ticket. And there's always going to be the secondary market for that. So you can go into OpenSea or one of these other NFT trading platforms. Coinbase NFT just launched yesterday. They're a client, so I have to shout them out. You can purchase NFTs from that marketplace as well. And when you get there, you'll be able to show that and get into the conference to see Snoop Dogg and Eva Longoria and some of the top NFT artists talk about their experience going through the Web3 transformation that everybody is thinking about right now.
That sounds great. So yeah, looking forward to it, and yeah, have a great time. So thanks for joining us on Coffee Break, Naimul, and good to find out more about NFTs.
Thanks for having me, Steve.